The night she walked into the restaurant, nobody noticed her at first, because people like her were not supposed to be noticed in places like that. A quiet black woman in simple clothes, tired eyes. Calm posture, stepping into a world built on crystal glasses, golden lights, expensive perfumes, and invisible walls that separated people by color, class, and assumptions. And as soon as she crossed the door, something shifted. Conversations softened, laughter slowed, eyes lifted for a second, then looked away again. As if her presence disturbed the fragile balance of their perfect evening, she stood there waiting politely, holding her bag, observing the room, watching couples laugh. Businessmen talk loudly. Waiters move quickly toward tables that looked familiar, safe, acceptable, yet no one came to her. Seconds turned into minutes, minutes into uncomfortable silence. And finally she walked toward the counter with a soft voice and said she wanted a table for one. But the receptionist looked at her the way people look at something they don't want to deal with. Scanning her clothes, her skin, her posture, and before she could even finish her sentence, the smile on the receptionist's face disappeared like it had never existed. And when Maya asked calmly why she was being ignored, the manager appeared from nowhere, confident, tall, polished, wearing a suit that made him feel powerful. Leaning slightly toward the receptionist as if whispering a secret, then turning toward Maya with a polite but cold expression and saying in a low voice, "We don't serve people like you here. You should try somewhere else." Words that were carefully chosen to sound polite but sharp enough to cut deep. Words that carried years of prejudice, privilege, and arrogance in just one sentence. And suddenly the restaurant went quiet. Forks stopped moving. Glasses froze midair. Conversations died slowly, because everyone understood what he meant even if he didn't say it directly. And Maya felt something heavy in her chest, not anger, not sadness, but a familiar feeling she had known her entire life, the feeling of being judged before being known. The feeling of being invisible yet exposed at the same time, and she looked around searching for at least one face that would defend her, but people avoided her eyes, some looked down. Some pretended nothing happened, some smiled faintly as if they enjoyed the scene, and in that moment she realized something painful, that discrimination doesn't survive because of loud racists alone. It survives because of silent witnesses, and she could have shouted, she could have argued, she could have pulled out her phone and recorded everything. She could have demanded respect. But instead she did something unexpected. She smiled softly, nodded once, turned around slowly, and walked out of the restaurant while the door closed behind her with a quiet sound. And the people inside returned to their meals, thinking the moment was over, thinking she was just another woman who would disappear from their memory, another story they would never remember again. But what they didn't know was that her name was Maya Johnson, a self-made entrepreneur who had grown up in a small neighborhood where dreams were rare and discrimination was normal. A woman who had watched her mother clean offices at night and her father work 2 jobs just to survive. A woman who had learned early that the world rarely gives respect to those who don't look powerful. And that night she didn't cry, didn't complain, didn't call anyone to talk about humiliation. Instead, she sat in her car for a long time, staring at the restaurant through the glass, watching people laugh inside, watching waiters move confidently, watching the manager walk proudly across the hall, and slowly her expression changed, not into anger, but into something colder, something clearer, something more dangerous than rage, determination. And while the city slept, Maya made phone calls, checked documents, contacted investors, studied financial reports, because she already knew something most people didn't. That the restaurant was struggling financially, that its owner was looking for buyers, that behind the luxury image there were debts, pressure, and fear. And while the manager slept peacefully believing he had defended the standard of his restaurant, Maya was working quietly, negotiating deals, signing papers. Using years of experience she had built in silence. And by the next morning, the sun rose over the city like nothing had happened. But inside that restaurant, everything was about to change forever. Because when the manager arrived at work, confident and careless like always, he noticed something strange. Unfamiliar people were standing near the entrance, serious men in suits. Women holding files, quiet conversations, and when he walked into his office, his smile slowly disappeared, because sitting inside were lawyers, accountants, and board members he had never seen before. And before he could ask what was going on, the door opened gently and she walked in, not wearing simple clothes this time, but a sharp black suit. Clean posture, calm eyes, confident steps, and the room went silent again. But this time the silence was different. This time it was heavy with fear, recognition, and disbelief. And she looked at the manager without hatred, without pride, without revenge in her eyes, just clarity, and said softly, "Good morning, my name is Maya Johnson. I'm the new owner of this restaurant." Words that hit harder than any slap, words that shattered his confidence, words that made the staff freeze in their places. Because suddenly the woman they ignored last night had become the woman who controlled their future. And the manager tried to speak, but his voice failed him. Because power had changed hands in a way he never imagined, and Maya walked slowly through the restaurant, touching the tables, observing the walls, listening to the silence, feeling the energy of the place that had rejected her. And she didn't shout, didn't insult anyone, didn't humiliate the manager the way he had humiliated her. Instead, she gathered the staff and spoke calmly, her voice steady but powerful, saying that from today onward, this restaurant would no longer be a place where people are judged by color, clothes, or background, but a place where every human being is treated with dignity. And some staff members felt ashamed, some felt scared, some felt inspired, because they realized they were part of something bigger than just a restaurant. And the manager stood there silently, realizing that his words from last night had changed his life forever. Because now he understood something he had never learned before: that respect is not decided by money, skin color, or status, but by character. And over the next weeks, the restaurant transformed. Staff training changed, policies changed, attitudes changed, customers noticed the difference, stories spread across the city. People started coming not just for food, but for the message, for the atmosphere, for the idea that everyone belongs. And Maya never told anyone about what happened that night. She never posted about it, never bragged about it. Because her victory was not about revenge, it was about transformation. And one evening, the manager came to her office quietly and apologized with tears in his eyes, saying he had never understood how painful his words were until he saw their consequences. And Maya listened silently, then smiled gently and said something that he would never forget: that sometimes the people you look down on today are the ones who will stand above you tomorrow. And sometimes life gives you a second chance, not to destroy you, but to teach you. And as the restaurant became a symbol of change in the city, Maya's story became a silent lesson for everyone who believed discrimination was normal. Because in one night, arrogance lost and dignity won. And if this story made you feel something, inspired you, or opened your eyes to how powerful patience and determination can be, then don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Because you never know whose life you might change with a single story.